Welcome back to Beholder to No One, a D&D podcast. Today, Greg and I are here with Cassi and Ripley from The Chosen Ones, a wonderful visual novel style YouTube actual play from the mind of Cassi.
Accompanied by the minds of my players.
Yes, true.
This is my mind. We're just living in it. But
So I guess the first step before we get started, what is a visual novel and what is Chosen Ones about a little bit?
A visual novel, it's most commonly found in Japan, although that's where it was originally made and most popularized, but eventually it spreads to other places too. So people in other countries have started making them as well. It's essentially a playthrough of a game where you sometimes make decisions and sometimes don't. It depends on the game that you're playing. I think traditional visual novels, the way it's set up is you have character art on the screen of the character that is talking to you or interacting with you, and then have dialogue options for them essentially below. And sometimes you're just watching the story play out. You don't take any actions. It's essentially like reading a novel, but with text on the screen, sometimes voice actors, traditionally usually no voice actors. So it's like an accompaniment to a novel, essentially, is the visuals of the characters' art and the backgrounds and stuff like that. So the way that we kind of took it and why we call ourselves a visual novel style is because it's kind of the way our style is you have the character art on the screen for the characters that you are seeing interact with each other. You have the background art for their location or the background images. And then you're kind of just watching a story play out, but you have that it helps with that level of immersion in terms of what you wouldn't get if you were just listening to something or just reading something. You have that visual element to it as well. It helps pair voice to character and helps you picture them a bit better.
That is true. I do. I am caught up completely and am obsessed a little bit. So Cassi can attest that I yell at them every single time at the end of the episode with why there's a cliffhanger.
So then you come back.
I know.
Makes perfect sense.
Logically, I know, but
I don't do it on purpose either. That's just how it happens.
I just say, Cassi, why?
Why'd you end it there? But yeah, I think that helps with it. And just in terms of what our show is about, it's kind of like, I like examining things a little bit more closely in terms of not stereotypes, but typical story plots, I think is more so what I'm thinking of, in terms of how a lot of stories deal with the idea of there being the one, there is the chosen one in the story that's supposed to, tackle the evil and make the world amazing again and all that. The most common example I can think of is Harry Potter, just because, it's literally you are the chosen one, you're destined for greatness, and that's just kind of how it is. And so dealing with a story where that's kind of implemented into the society where everyone knows there's a chosen one, it's expected that there is a chosen one, and it's kind of put into place from a not necessarily a political standpoint, but just everyone knows about it, and everyone knows that it could be anyone who becomes the chosen one. But it has to be for a reason, essentially. Something has to happen to make there be a chosen one. So the story is kind of examining and going through all of these characters who have the potential to be a chosen one, which are called sparks, who have an ability different from what other people can do, and trying to find out who the next chosen one is going to be, as a car honks really loudly outside my window.
The car is the chosen one.
That, yeah. Nope, no cars.
Oh.
But yeah, that's kind of the basic idea for what the story was supposed to be and how it started is you are all have the potential to be something great, but we just don't know who it is.
Spoiler alert, it's me.
It's Ripley the player. We go into a really weird fourth arc where Ripley decides to just play herself. No.
Mm-hmm. Once Brandy dies, you'll see.
Once Brandy dies in a year, Ripley just enters herself into the podcast.
This is my favorite thing to do, is just lie about things that happen because we're so far ahead.
We're so far ahead.
So
just yeah. Can't wait for you guys to see my third character.
I actually really enjoy the random Brandy moments that are out of character that are just like, I go behind you and kill you or something like that. And then everybody just starts dying laughing. And I'm like, I almost believed you.
We have had comments from people who thought Ripley was being serious. And I'm like, no, that's out of character.
No, I'm just a bastard who cannot, if I see an opportunity, I'm like, oh, this would be very funny. I'm going to do this now. Especially that last scene, it was in a recent episode where Chewy and Brandy were having a talk. And Chewy said something very nice to him, and Brandy laughed, and it sounded evil because Brandy sounds like that. And then Cassie was like, and he snaps his neck, and it killed me. I completely forgot.
It's so funny. Ripley does a lot of that kind of stuff, and I know because I hear it in the recording.
Yeah. I'll say it to myself.
Every single time, because Ripley is muted on in the Discord, when she's not in a scene, but isn't muted in the recording that she sends me. So whenever I see a waveform, I'll stop to listen to it and be like, "Oh, you must have said something important." But half the time, someone is they're like, "Oh, I smile at him," and Ripley goes, or I smile back, and Ripley goes, "Goldfish," and I'm like, "Stop!"
Yeah.
It's every single time.
That's fantastic. I would hate you in editing, but that's fantastic as a
Well, because I have to check. I have to check what the waveform is. I have to see if it's important.
It's never important.
It's never important. Ripley also likes to
one
randomly
time
sing.
you just delete it without listening and it'll be important.
Ripley also likes to randomly sing lyrics. Someone will say a lyric, something that's a lyric to something, and Ripley will just break out into song. And again, I have to check it.
I'm the worst when it comes to editing. I'm sorry.
It probably, at the time, Cassie's probably just like, I have 5 minutes to edit this whole hour episode. It's releasing in 5 minutes, but probably enjoys the laugh.
I mean, because we record separate tracks, that's something that we have with all of us, where people will be doing things and some of us can't mute our mics, double mute essentially. So one time, I think Jay just ate a whole ass meal that
Jay was eating grapes in call, and we were trying to get his attention, but he muted his audio in his earbuds and not his microphone. So we were calling to him Jay, and we thought he was doing it on purpose because he would stop chewing when we were calling to him and then continue chewing. And it was like, Jay, stop. Are you messing with us? What are you doing? And it was very good.
Jay and Zen have both had that in their recordings where I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? And it's someone crumpling bags of chips or eating ice cream that I can just hear. And I'm just like, oh, you're just eating. You're just eating.
No, I have to listen to you eat for 5 minutes to see if you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sadly, I have yet to partake in listening to your show, but I will most certainly be doing that after hearing just the first 5 minutes of this episode. That's pretty amazing. I will definitely be listening to it.
It's really good. Plus, I like all 4 characters, but Brandy is my favorite. But I think that's because Brandy kind of plays on that little depression high school heart of mine a little bit.
Thank you.
So I'm
Same.
That's me, but just 20 years ago.
I know Brandy's one of Ripley's favorite characters. I don't know if he is Ripley's favorite character.
Oh, he's my favorite for sure.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to play him finally, because I've been waiting to for so long. I had a brief chance in a game once, but that ended session 1. We didn't go any further after that, and I played him in one shots.
Oh, those are the worst.
But I was like, you.
That's the worst.
He literally.
When you're yes, I get to finally play the character to play for. Oh, it's over. Damn it. What do you mean?
Ripley also knows me. Obviously, we're together. We're a thing. But so we know each other pretty well and are pretty close to each other. And Ripley also knows I tend to not say no. So when people want to do something or want to implement something, originally Ripley wasn't sure about putting Brandy in just because of Brandy's character stuff, but talked to me about it, and it's very easy to get me excited about things, especially edgy things. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. We gotta be really We got to be really careful when we do this, but let's do it.
I'm very excited because Brandy has been somebody I've thought about too much. I'm just like, dang, let me think about this character for a very long time and the things that they're going through and everything. Why would you be this way, sir? Because it's a thing I do a lot with a lot of characters, especially with, well, no, I shouldn't say. That's kind of spoilers. It's fine. I do it with a lot of characters. I'm like, what has led you to be this person and why? And then I go back and I do that. And usually it's sad. And Brandy's is very sad. I was very mean to Brandy, but it'll be fine. It's fun. It's fun to see a character like that become better and become friends with people over time and learn that, like, hey, it's okay. You are deserving of happiness like everybody else, maybe. And that kind of character is very endearing to me personally. So I was very excited to be able to play this man.
He's a very good foil to Aviath. And also just in general, I would say
I love it.
I definitely enjoy, like, we have a lot of really fun moments with this cast, but I definitely also enjoy more serious plot lines, and Brandy really helps bring that in.
Yeah.
So because Greg hasn't seen it, would you like to explain Aviath a little bit?
Yes, please. I was very curious.
Aviath is a wonderful character, play bear, friend Jay. He is the stereotypical paladin type to an extreme. He is very boisterous, very loud, is convinced he's the chosen one, and is like a hero who has gone on so many great adventures and believes like he is undoubtedly going to be the next chosen one. But he's like genuinely wants to be somebody that people can believe in. So there's that endearing quality to him. And he hates everything that Brandy stands for, but it's still nice to him, thankfully.
Nice.
It was literally the first conversation they had where they met. Aviath was describing things that he did not like, and Brandy was listening and was like, this guy's not going to like me. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I thoroughly enjoy the dynamic already, and I haven't even listened to an episode.
He's also
he is
really
extremely
stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It was so funny because me and Jay didn't even plan this, but Aviath and Brandy are such literal opposites that it's like, it's crazy. And it's very funny and has led to a lot of fun moments. And I'm excited for more of them to come out because the more their relationship grows, the more excited I get as those two as characters, because there's a lot of bumping ideals, and it's very fun to see how they react with one another. And they get along surprisingly well, usually, unless Brandy's being an asshole.
Jay is just too nice of a player. I think Aviath would be meaner to Brandy in certain cases, but Jay's just too nice. He just doesn't want to be mean, you know?
Kind of like, though, that Aviath isn't going the, oh, you're evil, I must smite you route. Because, one, it would ruin the story a little bit, I think, but also because it's showing, like, you can have compassion for someone who's not 100% great and try to help them get to where where Aviath thinks that they should be. Even if that, or maybe Aviath will learn that just because that Brandy has some, like, darker things doesn't mean they're evil. So I think that could offer character growth for both of them, which
for
I love me some character growth.
And all of these guys have just they all have such low intelligence scores. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, Via has the highest at like a 16. I have I think I have a -1. I think Aviath has a -1. I think Chewy has I think we all are like in the negative. I think intelligence was our collective dump stat, to be honest.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Always gotta love the dump stats.
Theo's the smartest.
Yeah, I do like that Theo always goes in and tries to research things and like study and figure out things with books without being like the stereotypical wizard type.
And he went to college.
He's a ranger. He did go to college.
So with art, when you guys draw for the show, I know that Ripley, you've done the last couple of I don't know if you do all the thumbnails or just the last couple of them at least.
I do almost all of them.
Almost all
Well,
of them.
Do you prefer drawing like your character, or do you like drawing all the characters? Or because I think you each drew your own characters correct?
Mhm.
For the official art, yes. So not the tokens, not the little tiny tokens, but for the full body references, usually the people who make the character draw the full reference that I use. Because a couple NPCs were also given to me. I think only by Shayna though. So Shayna drew like 2 NPCs or something that I use those character refs for, or 3, something like that. Shayna gave me a bunch. But everyone else, all the other NPCs, I tend to draw the full bodies of them. And then Ripley draws almost all the tokens, the little tiny like chibis.
Yeah, I think personally, I mean, I always have a bias because it's very easy to draw my characters because I'm like, I know what you look like in my style. I know how to draw you. I'm just going to do that. And it's very fun to get to draw. It's very fun to get to draw my character. But I do like drawing everybody. I think everyone is very fun to draw. I haven't had a character where I've been like, ugh, except for maybe Aviath a little bit. Aviath drawing
Yeah.
armor is such a pain. And Aviath is such a big man that like he barely fits in frames, and I really have to work to like make sure he fits. But otherwise, it's very fun to draw all the thumbnails. And even when difficult, I still enjoyed drawing him because his design is very good. All the designs, I love them, thankfully.
That's cool. I really like, I love the thumbnails, but I actually really like when you guys was curious cat questions where there's pictures
Oh,
with
yeah.
the answer, and I'm just like, that's really freaking clever, actually. Like that adds an extra. That's a perfect example of utilizing art to promote, even if it's something small with people who are asking questions in character, and it's fantastic to see them answer in character too, especially Aviath, where he's like using all caps.
Yeah, to expand a little bit on that, we have Twitters for all of the main cast members as their characters, where you can ask questions to the characters themselves, and sometimes some of them will answer with art. Sometimes it's just answering in general, but it's kind of like little RP ask Twitters. And there's one NPC because I can't have like 50 accounts, who has an account. But yeah, it's basically using Curious Cat for people to ask questions, and then I think it's just Ripley and Shayna, and sometimes me, who will draw for the answers.
That's super cool. Nikki, we should look into doing that for our actual play. Maybe not the art side because I don't have an artistic bone in my body, but at least the creating a Twitter account for our characters and stuff. That sounds like a cool idea.
It's fun. It's even fun just to interact with each other, like. You know, like obviously their character accounts, they don't have a huge following or anything like that, but half the fun is just like talking to each other on there as your character. So it's fun. It's interesting. And Curious Cat has a thing where it will ask you a question every day. So even if you don't get people asking questions, you can still always have a question to answer if you want.
Yeah, I like how Aviath hasn't learned how to turn off caps lock yet.
And he never will.
He's very, Yep. Jay was trying to be like, how would he even know how to use Twitter? And I'm like, just separate yourself from it, Jay. Just separate yourself from this reality for a moment.
My favorite was when somebody asked like apples or a PC, and he's like, or apples or I forget the question, but it was related to Apple, and he's like, I love apples. Just like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Or Theo will like correct somebody. He's like, oh, I don't think that's how it works. But won't actually correct anybody.
He's too polite.
Yeah, they're fun. And then I did a poll for which NPC. I did one of the mentors, and Estel won, and she's the meanest. So you got the mean one on Twitter.
That's fine.
I would like to do that. That would be fun. But I'm pretty sure my character would just answer with a sarcastic response and try to intimidate them.
I can see that 100%.
So what other things do you use your art for other than like, I mean, art has a very important part, obviously, in any type of podcast. So in a visual novel, it's very obvious what the reason for it is. But what would a podcast that's maybe not a visual novel be able to use art for, do you think?
Promo, definitely. I think, honestly, even just having The thumbnails, we have custom thumbnails every week. Even just that is super helpful. But besides just that, I would consider this kind of in the vein of art. It's not quite the same because obviously I'm doing a lot for the show. I don't have time to draw like a ton of stuff for it, which is why Ripley does so much. Because if I could do everything, I would, but I can't. So I take show quotes from the show and I make little kind of like quote, like artsy quote things that I post, like images, and I use Canva for that. So there's ways to utilize like a more artistic way of advertising without necessarily drawing. Canva is completely free. It's got a bunch of templates you can use. You can customize, make your own, a lot of free royalty-free images and stuff on there too. And the way that we use it is just taking prominent show quotes and just putting it on there, and then also making sure that the name of the podcast is on there. So if anyone took it or reshared it, it would still be attached to that. So I think there's still ways to utilize design and art, even if you're not necessarily an artist. There's tools out there for you to use.
It's especially like eye grabbing, because if you have people can read text on a screen very easily, but it can be lost, especially with like how things like Twitter, where most people are advertising things. It's just a constant stream of words constantly everywhere. So it's very easy if you have like a piece of art that you throw on there. It's eye grabbing, and it's like, oh, what's that? And then it gives somebody more of an incentive to like look into what that is. And especially if it's like an exciting moment in podcast or something like that, it can help to get more eyes on something. It's definitely helpful for like promo, essentially, is what I'd agree with Cassie on that.
Promo the main thing. And then also just in terms of having someone click on it, we're on YouTube right now. I haven't switched to a podcasting platform, so I don't know if we're able to necessarily use custom thumbnails for every single episode, but we have that. And I think especially on a YouTube format, in terms of suggested videos or people looking stuff up and things like that, we have a different piece of art for every single episode. So there's different things when you're using like a single image to represent your entire podcast. If that one image doesn't connect with someone, they're not going to watch the rest of the show. Whereas having a different thumbnail for every single episode means maybe one or two didn't catch their eye, but maybe they look at episode 5 or 6 and they see something interesting and they're like, well, I want to see what happens. I want to see why that's there. And that can spark them going to episode 1.
I have used Headliner before, which doesn't really it has a visual aspect of it, but it's not perfect. One that I wish I could do, but I don't have access to it because I don't have iOS. Dan from Last Tapestry uses 2 different programs and makes some gorgeous visualized and also like Headliner, where it's an audio clip, but you can also see a visual representation of the words being used. And I think it adds a lot. And that doesn't require any artistic ability either. It's just where you place your words. So I really, really like it. I just need to figure out how the heck to get it on my computer.
Yeah.
I mean, like typography, where like you say.
Yeah, I think that's what you
Yes.
mean. Typography stuff.
That's cool.
That's the word that I was looking for. But I liked it because, like, especially when somebody like interrupted, it actually like was posted over the other person's phrase in like a different placement, so it still you could easily tell it's a different person speaking. Where with Headliner, it's just all very stereotypical black and white, or white on a black background on the bottom. And it's very difficult to tell somebody else is speaking. And it's a lot harder to interrupt or to add in like somebody's laughing in the background because you're like putting it in the middle of somebody's sentence.
Right.
So I can agree with that. And if you don't have artistic ability, go hire somebody to make you art.
Yes, please.
I know that we hired somebody to do our character art for Behold Clearlight, and then I put them on a background that was free on Pixabay and did some editing in Photoshop to make it fit our style that we wanted. But I don't have to draw the character art because I purchased that from somebody else who is way more talented than I will ever be in drawing people.
Same.
Yeah, and you don't need a lot of art. Like what I was saying, in terms of like doing quotes and stuff like that, you can easily just have your character art in the corner and just put different quotes and things for if you're pulling from a podcast that like moments that you feel are good. Like you can mix and match the things that I'm talking about for promo to still make it eye catching.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that, yeah, having character art, a lot of people like having that a visual to see. And also, it's much easier to get fan art if you have a visual already for people to reference.
Very, very true. Yes. Still waiting for the what was it? Yeehaw Thulu fan art though. No one sent that to me yet.
That's fantastic. So in what was it? In Weird Space RPG, we did a one shot, and one of the drinks we had, every drink we took it led to another roll on the morning after table. But one of them was you wake up in a bar on a mechanical bull, and they're screaming, "You're with the prophecy!" And I was the one that managed to hold on, even though I was the weakest. And we summoned Cthulhu wearing a cowboy hat.
And Spurs.
Oh.
Because it was cowboy cultists, so then it ended up being Yeehaw Thulu. And I'm just like,
Oh my gosh.
what is happening right now? I am so confused.
You know, sometimes that's just how it be.
Giving Ripley more character design
You're
ideas.
Oh boy.
I love cowboys.
And Eldritch
and
Horror.
Eldritch
So-
Horrors. I love it's my aesthetic. Eldritch Horror Cowboys is so good.
But we did get our first fan art for our World of Wilderveer, and that was amazing. And I wish we would get fan art again, because that was like such a cool feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was. It was really great.
Have you
Yeah.
guys received fan art? I've seen
We've
a
had
couple
some,
of
yeah.
We've had a few
memes and
popping
stuff
up.
people have made too.
Oh yeah. We
have
have a lot of those.
memes. A lot of memes.
Aviath is very easy to meme on.
They're mostly about Aviath. I think Jay has a folder of like 40 or something.
Jeez. A lot of them he makes himself, but yeah.
Yeah. I think most of them in the folder though were other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got
It's also nice. We have a couple friends who also watch the show. My friend Allison goes really hard on shit posts. So we have like videos from her that she's made making fun of Aviath. So they're very fun though.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Dan from The Last Tapestry was the first one who ever drew anything for the show, which was very nice. It was Chewy drowning.
That sounds
so
sure. That
kind.
sounds nice.
Yeah, so kind.
This inspires me.
Followed by Aviath in a Bible camp shirt, which is very good. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know that some of the memes that are posted are just really fucking funny, and I'm just like, yep, I can see that happening. 1000%.
Yeah.
Or that actually did happen.
I take them from the server. I'm like, yes, everyone, keep making memes. Give me content to post.
Give me something.
I hope we get memes of our actual play at some point.
Oh yeah.
You just have to have one character that's just extremely outlandish. Chewy too. If it wasn't Aviath, it'd probably be
Don't give
Chewy.
Greg ideas.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's already happening. Don't you worry.
This
After the oh wait, no, that's a spoiler. I can't say that. Never mind.
we recorded an episode today, and I was just like face palming for like 20 minutes of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the best though. That's like my favorite moments is when people are just goofing off. Although sometimes I do have to rein it in. I'm like, okay, guys, we've been on this joke for a while. We were in the middle of like a really serious battle. Can we like?
Yeah. Sometimes that happens.
I cut some of them out because I am big on like if it's an important moment in the game, like keeping the tone consistent. So I do sometimes cut out jokes, but I try to keep them in as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I will be very upset with you, Nikki, if you cut out any of that.
Good
from
thing
today.
I'm just gonna cut out the whole 20 minutes.
Yeah, keep it all in.
Nope,
People need to know.
Extra long episode.
20 minutes just cut out completely.
Or you could cut it and then put it at the end of the episode like a blooper reel type
But
thing.
the problem
That'd
is
be
you
fine.
intertwined it with like 40 other things that are important to the story, so I have to like.
Yeah, that's what I do, so you can't cut it.
So I'm just like, we're in the middle of something, and then he does the thing, and I'm just, God damn it.
That's me to a T.
I feel that. There was a moment There was a moment in a session not too long ago that I can't really go too far into, but I was making jokes that kept going, but in character as Brandy, and Aviath was getting very upset at some point, and he was just finally like, "Brandy, stop."
Oh, that's so far in the future.
I know, and it kills me. It's gonna be a year, but God, I'm very excited for when it does come out.
How much of a backlog do you guys have?
We currently are releasing, because we divide our sessions. Some of our sessions range from anywhere from 3 hours to 7 hours long.
Jeez.
And so we are currently releasing session 6, and we just recorded session 19.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, and every session is usually about 3 or 4 episodes.
Yep.
And with Cassie getting to the long ones now, those are going to be like at least 5 or 6.
Beginning of COVID, we had a couple that were 6 or 7 hours long, just because like we weren't doing anything.
Like, what are we gonna do?
Might as well
Yeah.
record.
And we were playing weekly. We were playing weekly at that point, and now we've cut down to about
Usually like bi-weekly.
It's every other week. A couple times it's only been once a month, just because wow, it was hot this summer, and having a ton of fans on while we record, even with fans, people were dying. Like,
yeah, it was
there
so
was
bad this
there was an episode that I was a little sad about for a while because there was a really big reveal in it, and there wasn't really much like reaction because everyone was dying.
It was
Like,
just because it was so hot. It was so muggy. It was so humid here that we were all just like, "Oh my gosh, it's awful. I just want to."
I don't even think Ripley was like, no, you were there for that scene, but like Ripley a couple times during the session would like get up and leave and go to the living room where the AC unit was.
Literally.
And I was like, okay, we gotta take a hiatus. Like, we can't record if this is gonna be how it is, where like people have to literally leave their rooms.
It was just so
because
bad.
It's so hot.
It's because especially also like our rooms just bake because this house isn't well insulated. So it's like, oh my gosh, I have to not be in here right now. Otherwise, I'm just gonna like drench my entire bed in sweat because it's disgusting. It's so bad outside. So yeah. But yeah, we are like way ahead at this point.
No freaking kidding. My God.
Yeah.
We just recorded probably literally like the biggest like reveal in the entire series.
And I fucking it.
Oh my God, tell all of it.
Okay.
No.
Here's what happened.
Shut up, I'll kill you.
Aviath was the villain the whole time.
Oh my God.
I don't even know who that is, but what?
Exactly. What? Yeah.
No, but seriously, shush, I'll get upset at you.
No, yeah, I'll stop.
I already had to keep it secret for almost a whole year, so
That's
you be
valid.
quiet.
Yeah, I won't ruin it.
If I have
pretty
to keep
great.
it secret, you have to keep it secret.
Yeah. I was just very excited because several things. I do this thing where I go into Cassie's DMs and I'm like, I have a theory and I need to yell at you about it. And then I do. And Cassie is very coy and is like, And last session specifically, I got several things right. And I was so happy. And then I was like, oh, that's terrible that those things are right. And now I'm afraid. So
Ripley's like, yes,
funny.
I got it. Oh crap, I got it.
Yeah, it was like, yay, I got it. Oh no, I got it. Uh-oh.
And now you get to live with that
panic.
until it happens.
Yep.
You have to experience what I felt not being able to share it for almost a whole year with you guys. Now we get to all not share it for a whole year together.
Yep. Which I'll also say, it's been very fun to go back and listen to the sessions as they're coming out, because it's like, oh, I missed that. Oh, and then it's like things are piecing together. And I'm like, oh no, everything's so much worse than I thought it was, and it's been hinted at for so long.
I do a lot of foreshadowing.
Lots of foreshadowing.
That happens with books. I don't usually reread books, but there have been times where I like the Dresden Files is one series that I will reread. And when I reread like the first or second book, I'm just like, oh, that's what that meant. Because like now there's like 17 books out, and I'm just like,
right.
Oh shit.
Well, because the goal is with foreshadowing is you want there to be a reveal in the sense where when it happens, people may not necessarily have been positive, or it may have been like in the back of their mind, but when it does happen, it's like a clicking moment, you know? I don't want it to be super, super obvious, but I also want it to be something that you're able to get, because that means I foreshadowed well. So it's something that I am always trying very hard to do, to drop things here and there. And also with your players, especially because, as we've talked about, re-listening is different from when you're playing. When you're playing, it's much easier to miss things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're listening, it's easier for people to pick up on things. But I have to be foreshadowing in the sense that it's for my players. So I might repeat things a lot.
Yeah.
that people might start to pick up on, because I'm trying to keep it in their minds. And I'm like, also this thing I'm mentioning again for no particular reason. Maybe it's important. I don't know. Why am I saying it here again out of nowhere? You know?
Don't worry
Right.
about it.
Don't think about it too hard.
Why did
fine.
Cassie repeat that? That must have been nothing. Probably forgot that they mentioned it in the past. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't think about it too hard. Don't think about it too hard. It's fine.
You'll just regret this 7 sessions from now. But no.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's I actually am pretty bad with foreshadowing personally. But also I think my issue would be like, did they get it? Did they get it? Did they get it? Did they get it? And I'd be like so excited. And then I'm just like watching and like, they didn't get it. Damn it.
Yeah, it's an experience I've had, because I DM 2 games also, like off to the side. And you really have to beat people over the head sometimes with your foreshadowing. You got to be like, here's the thing. It's going to happen soon. Like, pay attention. Remember this. I'm going to hit you with it several times so you don't forget. I'm going to make it real obvious, because otherwise it's going to go completely over your head and you'll be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, well.
What are you talking about? Where did that come
Especially
from?
with a game like Chosen Ones that's so long. I do have to constantly be like, and also this. And someone's like, well, I wasn't asking about that. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, just remember to.
Absolutely, don't worry about it whatsoever. You got to kick it up a notch and do 5 shadowing.
There you go. It's like, this thing is going to happen. It's like, what? Wait. And that's, yeah. And then it does.
Yeah,
Like,
I just start
told
telling
you.
people, I'm like, hey, a thing's going to happen now. I just want y'all to know. And everyone's just like, oh, okay. And then it's going to actually happen. They'll be like, wow, we didn't see that coming. No, just kidding.
Literally
Came out of
told
nowhere.
you it was happening. I don't remember that. No, it doesn't sound familiar.
I mean, honestly.
I mean, when you're in your head as a DM, you think it's really obvious. That's what I'm always worried about, is I don't want it to be so obvious that it takes the fun out of it, because that's part of the fun, is like having that reveal moment or like piecing things together as a player. So I do try to make it vague enough where it's not going to hit them over the head, but I just repeat it all the time, just constantly. And that's kind of my difference, is I'm like, it's still vague, but I just say it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I know that I don't know if you guys watched Critical Role, but I know that they had a lot of that too. And one of the more recent episodes, they bring up something from like the very, very beginning.
Yes.
And then there was like this whole like this was Beauregard putting all the pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was so good.
people were like freaking out on the internet for the wrong reasons, but there's like, oh wait, those are connected? What?
Mm-hmm.
This has been planned for 140 something episodes?
Yeah.
What?
So
I've been
the amount of planning that Matt puts into certain things, that's ridiculous.
Literally. I've been keeping up with Critical Role, and when everything suddenly started getting pieced together, I was freaking out. And I literally, at the end of the last episode, I was so mad because they're going on hiatus, which is valid. They work so hard. But it was like that reveal at the end, and then I went into my living room and yelled at my roommate. I'm like, oh my God, this thing happened, and now I don't know what's going on anymore. Oh my God.
I think immediately following the end of that episode, I think I yelled, holy fucking shit, like at my computer desk, and then immediately got up, ran into the other room to my wife. And I was like, have you listened to the newest episode yet? And she goes, no. I'm like, God damn it, listen to it now. I need to talk to you about it. And then I immediately texted Nikki. I was like, hey, have you listened to the new episode? She goes, no. I'm like, fuck, I need to talk to somebody about this.
Yeah, exactly. I still haven't technically finished it. I'm like halfway through it because I keep pausing to go listen to another podcast.
It's so good.
Oh, finish it. It's very good.
I've seen half of the first episode of the second campaign.
That's fair. It's long.
You are busy.
It's super long.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's like the feeling, like what you guys are describing is like the thing that I'm always trying to get. I don't know if I get there, but yeah, it's like trying to have that feeling of like this has been planned and well thought out, and like has a lot to it. It's not just a bunch of random nonsense put together.
Exactly. It's like what you strive for.
Yeah, I like those little moments, and I like the little tie-ins to previous campaigns too. We haven't had the chance to do that in our own personal games. I think we'll be able to do it if we ever continue with Dragon Heist into Mad Mage.
True.
I think we'll be able to do that a little bit, but like there was a moment. I'm going back to Critical Role because it's one of the few that I'm caught up on. But there was a moment where they found out who somebody was in campaign 2, and it was somebody from campaign 1.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to give spoilers, but it was just like the person who it was related to is like, wait, what? And they started, everybody started freaking out at the table. And I think like that right there probably just kept Matt going for like the next 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, just rode that high, just like, yes, finally.
Like
this thing has
3 years in the
happened.
making, or however long they've been doing that for now.
Exactly.
And
it is so hard not to say things.
Oh, sure.
I also have a really bad poker face. So when Ripley comes into my room to like guess things, it's so hard.
There was literally
so hard.
There was literally something, we were talking in a call after a session, and I was like, "Oh, this thing is this," to Cassie, and Cassie went silent for a second, and I was like, "You were quiet. I know it. It's true now. I got you, motherfucker."
There was a silence, and then I was just like, why would you think that? And
yeah, it was literally like the most suspicious, and I was like, "Oh, I got you. I knew it." And then I just have to wait to get the proof, and then I did, and I was like, "Yes, I was right," and now I'm afraid. Yeah,
like,
it's
why
always
did I
nice
do this
when
to
you
myself?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I've done this to myself. I'm happy that I was right, but now I have to live with the consequences that was right. Oh no. That's something I always strive for as both a player and a DM. Because even from like a player perspective, like as Brandy, I'm constantly trying to drop little things in there that's like, if you don't think about it on the surface, it just seems innocuous. But if you look at it deeper, once more stuff comes out, it's like, oh, Brandy,
I do the same thing. Even as a player, I will foreshadow my own characters.
Yeah, it's very fun.
It's fun.
I can imagine. I hope to be able to do that one day. Currently, I just, when I DM, I'm pretty much like, what is happening today?
I mean, yeah, that's valid too.
Today, you are walking and you need a fight. Okay, fire
It just depends on your play style. I've always had very big, extravagant plots that I've wanted to do. And I just converted them to D&D essentially. So it's like I've always had I don't write small stories. It's kind of a problem that I have. I tend to go really big. So I have a lot of those kinds of stories and ideas that I would love to turn into something and I'd love to make. And having people involved in the thing that you're making makes it so much easier to make.
Exactly.
It's so much easier to toss things in and put things into place. And that's why I think when I've had a couple people note that the NPCs, they feel like people, they feel like PCs, even though I'm playing them all. And part of that is because I have all these characters, I have all these stories. I can't do anything with them unless I put them in something. And so I do.
I want to know Dragas Story, Kathy. That deep, enriching character of Draga.
Yeah.
Draga, I'm really bad at names sometimes. Draga is the stone
rock goblin.
Yeah, the rock goblin. That deep, enriching, 3-dimensional character that is Draga.
She worships the same god as Viath.
I don't know.
It is absolutely a joke. She cares about nothing but rocks.
She worships the same character, or not character. She worships the same god as Viath. And the god is about like nature and stone and like the cycle of life and death and all that. And Viath focuses on like the cycle of life and death. Like that's the part of the god that he worships. And Draga likes the stones. So
yep.
They both worship the same god, but a very different part of like the gods.
Gotcha.
Everything that Draga does is like hitting stones together.
Yeah, literally.
She always has 2 stones that she's hitting together.
So we do have a couple of questions from the Twitterverse. Mike the Misfit DM asks, when designing an NPC, what's the most important part? Which NPC did you make that you thought would be important, but the party didn't give the time of day?
Designing NPCs, I think usually I don't actually put a ton of thought into designing them. It's usually like, I have to make this character because the session is tomorrow. And so it's usually not it's usually
Relatable.
not a ton of thought has been put into their designs. The ones that I would say do have the most thought would be the mentors, because they were characters that were already made. So these aren't even their first designs. So anytime I have a character that's from something that I've already done before, they're more thought out because I've already used them in something. I've learned how to play them more. I have more of an idea of who they are as people. When I make a new NPC for the first time, a lot of times their design doesn't end up fully reflecting them. Like I'll have an expression that doesn't work for them, or an outfit that I'm like, that may have not been a great design choice, but I had to make them really fast. But I think over time they kind of start to, fit it. I don't think you have to have like a perfect design for a character to make them work. And even sometimes then, like having a character that looks super sweet that ends up being not is like a good
You can say
like
essence, it's okay.
juxtaposition. It's essence, yeah.
Yeah.
But like it can have a good effect in that way. In terms of characters that people didn't pay much attention to, I feel like I can't answer that because we're still playing. And there's spoilers. There's some spoilers about some stuff. So yeah, like there are definitely characters. The thing is, if someone is important, if an NPC is important and the party ignores them, they're gonna come back. They're gonna regret not paying attention to them.
Yeah. I realized
It's
some stuff
never
about certain
never-
NPCs that I'm like,
yeah.
oops.
It's never a situation of, oh, I can't use them because no one paid attention to them and I'm so sad. It's like if I spent a lot of time on designing them and making their story, they're gonna come up. It's gonna be on the party's terms or it's gonna be on my terms. And you don't want it to be on my terms. So
Yeah.
I also, one thing I would like to add to that is you have to remember that the party may react completely differently than how you anticipated.
Oh yeah,
For sure, yeah.
I mentioned this before in the podcast, so I'm going to mention it again. So, haha, those listening. But like there was a bad guy from Dragon Heist that my character ended up dating instead of like
Oops.
being like, oh, you're the bad guy, you're evil, I can't date you. And it actually helped. Like, granted, it was also the DM who made it happen. It probably shouldn't have worked out if another DM was doing it, but it added to the story a lot. And a lot of people in the party were like, he's just using you. Why are you dating him? He just wants blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, he's actually a really nice guy. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
And it ended up working out in the end. But the entire time, I know that if I or somebody else was the DM, they might have been like, no, are you sure? You're like neutral good. Are you sure you want to date someone who's like lawful evil?
Yeah.
I think it's fun to play into that though. Sometimes people take interest in characters that I'm not expecting, and they may have been more surface level, but that interest makes me have to develop them.
Exactly. I do the
And
same
so
thing.
sometimes like someone who was supposed to just be evil, someone took interest in, and then I'm like, okay, well, I have to develop that now. And then maybe they're not as evil as I originally intended because I had to think about that. I had to think about why they are the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. I do similar things where whenever I write a villain, usually they're pretty surface level, but then especially if a party takes interest in them, I'm like, okay, why are you the way you are? Why are you like this? And then I'm like, oh, now I'm sad about you, and now I kind of like you, because I think it's very important to remember that even if somebody is the worst, they're still a person at the end of the day, so they have something. I like the appeal of villains that are just so mustache twirlingly evil, to where they're like, I don't care about anybody and I'm evil and blah blah blah. But
Very rarely,
I
though.
think it's everybody's way more complex than that, and there's reasons for doing what they do, and it's more endearing if you can make a villain who's like, yes, I do these terrible things, but also I can show empathy and sympathy towards people and even be in relationships with people whose ideals may not even like align with my own and shit like that. I think it's very compelling.
Every time I make a villain that's meant to be that, where I'm like, there's going to be evil, there's going to be evil, and there's going to be nothing else to them. They always end up having more.
Yep, same.
I honestly like the characters that are like, they're evil, but to them, they're not. To them, they're doing
Exactly.
what's right, and they're just going about it a completely wrong way. And that could be anything from like, they saw somebody abusing somebody at a young age, so now they're just like, fuck all these people and just assume the worst and go and do these evil acts thinking they're helping when in actuality they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
those are my favorite types of characters. Every once in a while it's like I like the one that's just evil to be evil, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I got a message. In terms of like, I don't like things to be clear cut and clean in terms of like ideology, morality, and stuff like that. So like a lot of things that maybe on the surface seem really straightforward, I try to subvert them and make them different, which is fun. And also just don't think about that too hard now listening to my show. But yeah, I like doing that a lot, where people expect something or they assume something, and then it just gets completely twisted around once you actually have more context and understanding.
Exactly. I do the same thing. So much so to the point that my party in one of my games has joined the quote unquote villains of the campaign, and are helping them out because it's just how I am.
Hey, it's a lot of fun. I like being in the villain group.
Exactly. It's fun. It's fun to indulge in that, especially if they're not actually all that bad. They're just,
Yeah.
if everybody in the world is morally gray, then it's just who you align yourself with, essentially, that judges who's the good guys and who's the bad guys.
They
and I think
are
that's
the
way more
bad
interesting.
guys in the eyes of the government is more so.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Was there another part to this question? I don't remember.
There was, but you answered it. So
Okay.
Oh, okay.
look at you being on the ball. The next question is from Cheryl from Nature Shack.
Cheryl.
How do they decide how much detail to include in the art that they create?
Cassie tells me.
I do. I do. I'll be like, this one is detailed shading, this one is cell shaded, this one is flat shaded. The tokens are all pretty much the same level. No real difference because I mean it's just one token style. It doesn't need to have like, it'd be really weird. I like one super detailed token and then the other's not. So but the thumbnails and stuff, I usually have an idea where I'm like, this one would be really cool with really like dramatic shading, and then I'm like, this one's just the face of a goat, so you don't really got to do anything. Like
Yeah.
so like that kind of thing, I guess. I usually have an idea in my head of which ones. I hate to say it, but it's usually episodes that I think are more important are the ones where I'm like, detailed shading, go all out. Everyone's got to know that it's important, but you know, like,
Yeah.
or it's just a cool like cinematic moment that I want to be more detailed with. In terms of art, I have trouble simplifying my style beyond what it already is, and I have trouble making it more complex. So it's kind of just there. That's the way it is. That's the style. It's gonna be that way. Sometimes it is a little more rushed, and if I have time before certain characters are introduced, I'll probably redo some references, just because it is sometimes like, we have a session tomorrow and you might meet 4 people, so
Yep.
I gotta draw that now, especially if they're people that you might potentially fight. I have to make sure I have tokens ready. We are currently still at the point where Ripley makes most of the character tokens. We do eventually get to a point where I start to make them. But I think that actually
want to spoil stuff for me.
Yeah, that actually I think goes into another question that you have that I saw because I peeked on Twitter.
How dare you?
How
Spoilers.
dare. I only have 2 more questions.
That one was from Andrew.
Did he answer it on the retweet for you?
No, it was on your new one, your new tweet. I remember what it was.
I'm gonna look. How did I miss that one? I even liked it. How do you do art good? But seriously, since your players are your artists, do they know things about the campaign that could be spoilers in order to create art? Or are you able to keep them in the dark and still get the images you want? And that's from Andrew from the first one.
Yeah. So in terms of that, because I was like, I'll just I'm like, I know there's a question about this, but I wanted to make sure that
I'm glad you said something because
who it was from.
Did not print screen that one accidentally.
So in terms of that, for really, really big spoilers, I don't tell anyone and I don't have them draw them. usually that's how people get super suspicious, is if I show a piece of art token wise that like they haven't seen, that's not in Ripley's style. People are like, oh, we might fight this one because
Wait a
Ripley didn't
second.
draw it and Cassie did. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't want you to draw it.
I just wanted to draw today.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw today.
Yeah, that's
But
what it
yeah.
always is.
It's sometimes it is also because I just don't have enough time to draw a full body reference, and tokens are easier because they're like, tiny and simple and easy. So sometimes I do just draw the token versions, and it's not for the idea that you're going to fight them, but sometimes it's like, you might fight this person, and I don't want you to know that. Because if I ask Ripley for a token specifically, that seems very clear that we're going to fight them. So I do tend to try to be more careful about that. But I also have Ripley sometimes draw characters if I don't have time to draw them at all. I'll give Ripley vague descriptions of characters and just be like, I don't have any time to draw this person today. Can you draw them for me? So Ripley has seen a couple. She hasn't given any context on personality or who they are name-wise or anything about them. So it's essentially just waiting to see who this person that she's made when they show
Waiting to
up.
see if they stab me. Yeah. It's like, are you going to bully me? Are you going to bully me when you show up? I don't know yet. I hope
Sometimes
not.
it is honestly just I don't have time to draw them, and the tokens are fast and simple.
Do you
Okay.
this isn't a question, but do you have a hard time Ripley stopping yourself from like that meta of like, this is probably a bad guy?
That's a good question. Usually I'm like, whenever I'm drawing somebody, I get a feel for like who I'm drawing, and I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna stab me in the back. You might, but most of the time I'm okay with separating myself from that meta of like, I'm designing a token right now. That means they could show up on a battle map. That means they could kick my ass. I don't know yet. Usually I'm pretty good about it because most of the time, sometimes they're people that are going to actually help us instead of hurt us. So sometimes it's like, oh, it's okay.
So they might be involved in the fight, but not necessarily against you.
Exactly. It's like, they might be in the fight, but it might not be against us. But sometimes it is, and sometimes it goes very bad. And I'm like, well, all right, that's fine.
I think it also helps just because of the way that our show is. Before, when I used to ask you to draw tokens, it was very clearly because we were playing a game and I needed them for a battle map. It was almost always going to be that because we weren't doing a podcast. But for this, because we are doing it podcast style and we have a lot of characters on the screen, I need the token version. So it may honestly not be that you're going to fight them. It's just there's 10 characters on the screen right now. I need to be able to put them all on there. I need tokens. Full body references of 10 characters on the screen is not going to work.
Fair. Very fair.
How many characters on the screen until they get to be chibis?
I do 3 max. So you can have 3 characters in a scene, and you're allowed to be on the screen. Unless you're Viath. Viath's only allowed with one other person.
Yeah, that's too big.
He's too big.
I know that there's been some scenes where you literally do have 10 people on there, but I'm just like, I'm waiting for the day where you get so many characters that you have to draw new characters that are all just chibi little forms that are super cute. And I'm going to be so amused when that happens, if that ever happens.
I mean, if they ever get to that point, honestly, I'd probably just do little heads because I'll be like, we can't fit all you on the screen, so now you're just heads. Like
Floating head. A Halloween episode right there.
There you
go. The next question. So this is less about art and more for Cassie, since I think you do all your editing. How much editing out do you do for gaps, delays, and ums?
So
I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to that.
I think I'm pretty sure I know too.
Yeah.
So much. I think, okay, the last episode, which was titled Chewy's Concert, Zen talks for, I think, a couple minutes. In the first minute of his dialogue, there were over 24 cuts, and I counted.
Oh.
Zen is super thoughtful in his approach to when he talks about things, so there's a lot of spaces. Yeah, so there's a lot of situations. It's also just like we're all in different environments. People have squeaky chairs. People have traffic in the background or people walking around, someone slamming a door. Just mouth clicks. I'm very annoyed by mouth clicks, and I will go into the like spectrum thing or whatever, and I will circle and delete mouth clicks from the audio because they annoy me so much. I don't do it for all of them, but if it's a prominent one, I'm like, I gotta take it out. I gotta go in there and get rid of it. Because it just annoys me. But yeah, I do keep a certain amount of ums. Everyone is allowed. They're allowed an amount of per talk and conversation. It's very small. I cut most of them because I am luckily good enough at editing that I feel like you can definitely tell I'm editing it and like taking things out, but it's not super noticeable. I can stitch things together pretty well.
Nothing has ever taken me out of it, so I haven't noticed it personally when I've listened.
I do re-record lines sometimes, and I suddenly HD characters enter the scene out of nowhere because I have a different mic than when we started. I had that mic for 10 sessions or something like that, so that's gonna just be a thing for a while because that mic was having some technical difficulties, some glitches and stuff. I have to re-record some lines, so it'll be like, hello, how are you doing? And then like someone will be like, hi, I'm doing well. Like it's just,
Yeah, it's very fun. I call Cassie out every time. I'm like, oh, so you got to record that one, huh? Because it's just, it becomes once you've heard it enough, it's like, I see the difference here. I see your energy is completely different as well.
Yeah, it's because I'm not in a session. So I'll be like, yeah, we're doing it and having a great time. And then I'm just like, and then you see this in the room with you. Because I'm like trying to be quiet because I'm not in a session anymore. And so it's like that mentality of like other people can perceive me who aren't in the conversation in this house. So
yeah, a lot of them used to be, it was roles that we did. Because now Cassie was like, we should read out roles so that people know what is happening when we do it.
Yeah.
But in the early sessions, we weren't doing that as much. And you'll just hear like, yeah, you did it. And then you'll hear Cassie be like, 19. And then it's like, it's like, huh, you added that in, huh?
I also make them up because I don't remember them. So I just do it based on what people sound like. They're like, oh, yeah, that was so good. I'm like, yeah, the 22 that you got, it was good.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, man, I failed. And I'm like, yeah, 3, that's rough.
Yeah,
Like,
it's very funny.
That's fantastic. I used to, when I first started editing the actual play, I literally chopped like everything. Every space, like it was gone. And then on the second episode, Ashley was listening to it and she's like, we sound a little robotic. Not in the sound of our voices, but because they're like the natural pauses between our words just weren't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I toned it back a little bit. So editing is a little bit faster.
Right.
But there are moments where I'm just
you
like,
need to have a good balance. You need to keep some of the imperfections in to make them sound like people. But too many can also take people out of a scene. Like you don't have to hear someone's 5 mess ups that they couldn't say a word right. And you don't have to hear a 3 or 4 minute discussion of us trying to figure out what this rule means or something like that, or someone stumbling over their words, or like you don't have to keep all of those. I think are okay in small amounts. They are something that me personally, when I listen to other people's podcasts, it's a pet peeve for me. So if there are too many and things, or too much like bickering or things about rules and stuff like that, if there's clearly not been a ton of post-production editing, that does take me out of it just because I am an editor, so I notice it more. But that's just because literally I'm the one who edits. I do it professionally and for a hobby, so I pick up on it more when I hear it in other people's stuff. That's not going to be a typical audience member.
what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say it was like to the point where for the editing the second episode that you were just talking about, like I would talk and then Keith would talk immediately and then Ryan would talk, and sometimes the words like interlapped a little bit, so they were cut off at the end. And yeah, the robotic in the sense where like there was no drops in conversation whatsoever. And I mean, people's brains don't work that fast, so there's no way that was legit. Like that's how the episode went or whatever. But it's better now, thankfully, so that's good.
Yeah.
Live and learn.
There's always kinks in the first episode.
Oh, for sure.
Well, it was also, I just started using Adobe Audition.
Yeah, that too.
So I was still learning how to get the right balance of when I should cut things and where I should replace them. I think the hardest ones I have an issue with is when somebody is saying a sentence and it makes sense to them and they're like in the middle of a sentence and they change their train of thought and then they start another sentence and then they go back and I'm just like, how the fuck am I supposed to edit that to make it sound
I do that
legit?
all the time, and I apologize.
It's
I think those are called false starts in, or that may not be the right term, but like you start a sentence or a thought and then you switch to something else.
yeah, and the problem is like sometimes the sentence continues the way it started, but like there was a train of thought in the center of it. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to keep that first part, but then they stop because then the second part won't make any sense if I don't keep the first part. So
Right.
how do I? Ryan actually does it the worst, honestly, but
Sometimes you just need to keep stuff in, and people realize that it's improv and mistakes. It happens as long as it overall makes sense.
yeah, our DM usually is the worst one, but he also talks the most, so that makes
Mhm.
sense
Mm-hmm.
why has the most situations
Yeah,
going on.
I mean, that's also why as the DM, I'm glad to be the editor because I have those moments too where I just say completely wrong words sometimes,
Mhm.
and I have to go back in and re-record things if I don't catch it in the time that we actually record it. And having it, because as the DM, what I say is very important. So I need to go back and fix that. If I say a wrong word that could change the entire context of everything, I may have corrected Ripley recently on something. I was like, hey, I said one word in a really important scene not recently, but like a couple months ago. I need to tell you what the right word is because it's going to change your entire idea about everything if you think it's the other
Oh,
word.
man.
It was a big slip up.
Pretty big slip up.
That makes sense.
You won't understand. This won't make any sense out of context, but the words were life and light. And I
Yeah.
switched them. And so the context of the sentence was completely different if it was light or life. So
That would make sense, yeah. You need to turn on
yeah,
the
so I was
light.
like,
It's like, wait, what?
yeah.
Turn on the light.
So I was like, that was really important, and I just need you to know what the correct word was supposed to be because don't act on the other one.
Well, I noticed that once I said something and it was more like, hey, can we try to, if we start messing up our words, can we pause, say repeat, and like re-say the phrase during the actual recording? That has been significantly easier for editing.
Mhm.
And for the most part, people are pretty good at that. And
Yeah,
I know,
I do that sometimes. I'll myself do it where I'll just be like,
Mhm.
okay, let me redo that.
Yeah, we do that in podcast a couple times. We're just like, okay, let me redo that because that
yeah,
sounded
or
weird.
I'll ask. I'll be like, hey, can we pause a moment? Can you just say that line one more time? I don't think it read well or something.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do it when I need to start doing it when I stop. When I start a sentence without having my full train of thought, I tend to like pause in between
Yeah,
all my
that's the
words.
cutting that I have to do a lot is
So
removing those pauses.
yeah, those pauses are like, it makes it sound weird though when you cut it sometimes, for me at least.
I don't cut the whole pause, so I'll cut it down. So the pauses are still there. It's just less. It's just less of a pause.
Gotcha.
Because I do it too
That's
when I
fair.
talk. I'll be like, because this important thing we're currently talking about,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
because it's especially again as the DM, whatever I say improv in the moment is going to now be taken as truth for the rest of the game. I don't always have every single thing prepared for what people ask me, so improving can be super stressful and hyper important, and so sometimes I am very slow with responding.
That's fair. So last question, Kyle Wagner asks, I would imagine there is a time crunch for making art with the podcast. How do you handle that?
Do it the day before.
Well, I try to give it to Ripley.
Procrastination.
I try to give the thumbnails to Ripley at least 5 days in advance. I try to get the next idea to her. Because I'm like, okay, we drop on Thursday, Friday. Sometimes I just need breathing time. And then I try to, by Saturday, at the very latest, get the next idea to Ripley. And with tokens, I try to give, if I can manage, like 2 weeks, if it's like for the podcast itself. Because a lot of times it's just like this character, I know this character is going to be in a scene with a ton of other people, so I know I'm going to need a token. and that scene's coming up, and so like I know I need it, so I try to give 2 weeks or more for tokens. Like the animal ones, I think I gave like a month in advance for the animal ones that I wanted.
And I still
Those
did
were
them
so
like
cool.
a day
Yep.
beforehand.
Those were so cool.
Thank
And
you.
then in terms of art for the actual show, though, a lot of times I don't realize I need things until like we're about to play. It's very rare that I these days have Ripley draw something before we play a game. Because we're in spoiler zone now. We're in the zone where pretty much every character that's going to be drawn is going to be a spoiler or going to have something in them that I can't have Ripley draw for. So, because before the game started, before like they actually met the NPCs in game, a lot of them had already been drawn and shown to them. We're to the point now where like the characters are being introduced to characters that have like high significant plot importance, or I just don't want Ripley to draw them because they're important to me to be able to draw. So I don't have Ripley. Wow, I don't have Ripley
Gross.
draw for
Disgusting.
actual sessions as much anymore.
Yeah, I am a huge procrastinator. I like to just wait till the last moment because also my brain works a lot better when I have such a tight deadline that I'm like, okay, I have to get it done now. I don't like taking time on things usually unless it's something I really, really don't want to do, which is weird because I'll work more consistently on something I don't want to work on versus I'll work like immediately on something I do, or I won't work immediately on something I do want to work on until I have to. And the tokens themselves, they take like, at most, usually they take like 20, 30 minutes depending on how much like reference material I have, because they're small, they're easy to draw at this point because I've done it so much. I do all my own original art for all of my games and other people's games as well. So yeah, and then the thumbnails, usually they're pretty easy at this point because I have the references for the characters, and Cassie's very good about giving me descriptions and or just letting me kind of do whatever and interpret whatever they say as what I'm going to do. Like, for example, I think one of them recently was the single Brandy thumbnail. Cassie was like, I need Brandy to look angry for this thumbnail. And I'm like, okay. And then I made him look very, very angry. And just because I was like, I want to make this a little, I know what he looks like when he's mad in this scene. So I'm going to go ahead and just go real all out on this because that's fun. And sometimes when I get inspired, it'll take longer. But otherwise, usually they don't take too long, thankfully. Me and Cassie I can go and bug Cassie and be like, hey, look at your DMs. I need approval to continue.
I always provide at least a description and then the level of detail that I need for the thumbnail. Like this one's waist up. This one is this character's facing left while this one's facing right. And I also provide, if I can find them, or if they require one that's more like nuanced, I'll give like stock photos of like the poses or just expressions or things like that for basic ideas. And some of them, like, you know, like for the Chewy one, obviously the one for the last episode, I gave Ripley the pictures, like a couple different styles of lanterns to pick from, and was just like, just pick one of these, you know, like it wasn't super detailed. It was more of a like, pick whichever one is easier for you. Like it's usually what I tend to say is, I want it to be this way, but if this way is easier for you, you can change it because they're, you know, 4 or 5 day deadlines. So.
Well, that is the end of the episode. So why don't you guys tell us where we can find you?
You can find Chosen Ones on my YouTube channel, Casserole, CASSIROLL, because I made my username when I was like 9 years old and couldn't spell it. So Casserole. And then you can also find our like official D&D Twitter, Chosen Ones D&D. Pretty straightforward, easy to find.
And you can find me on twitter.com. I don't really do anything else. I am Rip with 2 P's _tides on Twitter. I do art and commissions, and please commission me. My job has cut my hours significantly. Please. But yeah, you can find me there. I post art sometimes. A lot of retweets, but also a lot of art. And yeah, it's fun. And I guess you can also find my Twitter account for Brandy, the question one. You can find that at the Pale Tiefling. I'm gonna answer questions on there again. I swear. I have been meaning to sit
Zen
down and
has
just
such
do
a
it.
backstock because it was like months ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, I got all these questions. I'm gonna draw answers for them," and then it's just nothing.
And Zen
Yeah.
is so busy. Yeah. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And I will make sure to include, or Greg will make sure to include all the links down below. Check out the Chosen Ones on YouTube's and catch up so I can go and talk to you about it. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. This has been
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
definitely.
having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye. Whoa, what's this? It seems that we forgot to record our outro for this episode, so you guys get to listen to my voice for a minute or so here. As you know, we release episodes Mondays and Thursdays. Catch us on any place where podcasts are done, iTunes, Spotify, stuff like that. We also now have a YouTube channel, courtesy of Nikki's husband, Keith, as well as our own website. So you can check us out on YouTube at Beholder to No One. Or you can go to beholdertoknoone.com where we have just like a list of all of our episodes and a couple other little things like that. You can also find us on Facebook. That's usually my domain at Beholder to No One, and then Nikki is usually handling the Twitter account at Beholder to No One. Once again, thank you guys very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode and keep being awesome. Bye.